What's good, everybody? This is Dario Hunt from Live On Fearless, and I'm back with another reaction, this time to The Green Book. So, let's talk about it. So, like I said in my previous reactions, I am soldiering through all of the Best Picture nominees that I have not seen yet, and next up on that list was The Green Book. So, let's get right into it. Slight spoilers ahead, as always. So I will admit that I have been fairly skeptical heading into this movie, and while when it first came out, the previews looked fairly interesting and looked like a good enough movie, and I did like the casting because Viggo Mortensen and Mahershala Ali are proven great actors, but it is a story that I am kind of tired of seeing. When it comes to race in America, it is a very, very sensitive and touchy subject, and one that there are probably millions of different stories of throughout the years that could easily have a movie made about them, and a lot of them have, and they have been steadily been coming out year after year after year, basically on a predictable basis. And while yes, I do think it is very important to have these stories told and have them reach a larger audience, to have it be better informed about what was really going on and what those times really looked like. But at the same time, I do have that feeling like, how many more civil rights era movies can I see? Particularly when we have so many original movies coming from the perspective of a minority, such as Get Out or Sorry to Bother You, and movies in that kind of same category that have been very well received over the past few years and have told a very unique story from our perspective without us feeling like we are coming from a position of being oppressed. And it definitely feels like there is sort of a shift going on where those stories are having an avenue and a lane to be told on a more frequent basis, and to really see the more creative and interesting aspects of us outside of just, slavery and Jim Crow and all the racist shit that has happened in the history of this country. But again, let me reiterate, that does not mean that I do not think that these stories are important, because I do think they are extremely important, but they can definitely wear on a bit. And considering that we get these movies all the time now, they start to feel that they run through the same beats, and you already know exactly how things are going to turn out. But I am happily and pleasantly surprised to tell you that this movie manages to avoid many of those issues that I have with this, tried and true formula in cinema. Based on the previews, I was really led to believe that the movie was told through the perspective of Mahershala Ali, but in reality, the perspective is told through his driver, who was played by Viggo Mortensen, and it is a refreshing take. And it was a very smart decision because it allows you to enter into the story and to view the events of, the Jim Crow South from a very different perspective than you normally see on film. In fact, while, racial tension is always looming large in the background, the real focus of the film is really between these two's relationships, in the way that is kind of like a buddy cop film, where it is that typical odd pairing story where they are two very different individuals that somehow come to a middle ground and really start to actually enjoy and like being around each other. And although they do play fairly heavily into some very general stereotypes here, particularly with Viggo Mortensen's Italian character, they do so in a generally meaningful way without it actually going into the realm of almost like slapstick comedy, which can happen very often in a film like this. And Don Shirley, who is played by Mahershala Ali, is easily one of the most interesting people from this general time period in history, and from any type of film set in this type of setting. He is wholly different than most other people that you would see in his position from a film like this, and it is very, very refreshing. And the fact that I actually did not know that much about Don Shirley really heading into this film, and walking away from it really wanting to learn more about him because he was so interesting, was a huge win. But for a film like this to really work, it really all hinges on the chemistry and relationship between these two leads. And I have to say, it is pretty fucking fantastic. As I said earlier, Viggo Mortensen and Mahershala Ali are really like A+ level actors, and they really, really put it all out there on the screen. And their chemistry together is absolutely fantastic. So much so to the point that actually by the end of the film, I couldn't help but find myself smiling when they finally really reached that climactic point. It was really heartfelt, a lot more than I was really expecting it to be, considering I have been pretty jaded to this entire genre of films over the past few years, but it really hit home for me just because of the relationship and the dynamics between these two very different but interesting characters. So from a story perspective, I felt like it was fairly by the numbers and it hit all the beats that you would expect a movie like this to. It was fairly predictable in everything that it did, even though it is a true story. But from a character's perspective, it really blew me away, and just how well these two were together on screen and just how much it actually hit home with me on an emotional level. So looking at this from the Oscars, do I think the movie itself should be nominated for Best Picture? Honestly, probably not, because like I said, I don't think it did anything particularly amazing from a story or cinematic type of perspective. But I can definitely see why it would get that nod, because, I mean, honestly, let's be honest, the Academy loves movies and stories like this. But from a character's perspective, I can definitely see and vouch for both of these actors being nominated for their respective roles, because they absolutely knocked it out of the park, and it is single-handedly what elevated this story from being just another generic civil rights era film. But for those of you that have seen this movie, what do you guys think about it? Do you think it deserved all its Oscar nominations? How do you think this stacks up to a lot of the other films kind of from this particular lane, particularly from, Jim Crow civil rights era type of filmmaking? What do you think about their roles, and how do you think they portrayed the characters on film? Let me know in the comments down below, and be sure to head over to the official site. You can leave your own ratings for this movie, other movies, and everything else I react to over there on the site. If you have anything that you would personally like me to react to, you can also let me know in the comments down below. And if you like any of the gear that I rock in these videos like this or this, you can also head over to the site and grab some for yourself. As always, thank you guys for joining me. If you're liking these videos, please smash that like and subscribe button for me. I'll be back to show you more reactions. But until then, I'll catch you guys soon. Peace.